Welcome to On the Corner of Main Street, presented by Plaza Hotel and Casino in downtown Las Vegas. Here is Plaza CEO Jonathan Jostle, Gary Vickery, and I'm your host, Lisa Melmed. Hello and welcome to On the Corner of Main Street. Hello, Gary.
How are you, Lisa?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you?
Good, very good. Good.
It's just me and you today?
Yep, Jonathan isn't here, but we'll hear from him shortly as we present another episode of the Oscars Dinner Series. But more about that in a moment.
Yes, before we get to that, you might be able to hear a little construction in the background.
Yep, that is the reimagination of Main Street construction underway.
Yes.
You can hear the jackhammering and on cue right there. Some of the trucks backing up, and it's full steam ahead.
It's exciting.
I can't wait. But we are open.
We do have a wall put up in front, but there is an entrance right there.
And you don't have to worry about listening to the jackhammering while you're here in the steakhouse. They're long done by the time the steakhouse opens.
That's true. And before we know it, we'll have a patio here at Oscars.
That's exactly what we're looking at right now. It's going to be amazing.
Yes. And then, of course, August is right around the corner as we record this episode. And we've had some exciting events in July, like, of course, we talked about 4th of July.
Yep.
And this past weekend.
As we're recording this, we, World Market's in town. Over the weekend, there was a small anime convention that was up in our ballroom space. Yes. You had some social media.
Yes, we had Pompsy and Greta and Norma Gelly and Jacob's Life in Vegas. They did a meet and greet here, which was really exciting to see them meeting some of their fans and followers.
Right. It's not the same as it was last year, but it's good to see some of the conventions starting to come back and, some of the things being ready, and I can't wait for the second half of the year. But in August, we have Super Bingo.
Yep.
That'll be starting
this weekend.
Yeah, a few other events that'll be happening in the ballroom space as we kind of go through. So it's exciting. It's exciting times that are happening here, and look forward to
I was here this past Saturday because of this influencer event, and I'm usually not here on Saturday nights, but it was bumping on Saturday. Sand Dollar had probably 300 people in there. It was so busy, and it was just the best energy. It was a great night here.
Okay, what time were you here?
The event started at 5. I left around 10:30.
And it was probably going until 4 o'clock in the morning, because with Sand Dollar, it just keeps picking up steam as the night goes on. So
love it. It's so fun having a place like that, because before, where would everyone hang out until 4 a.m.?
I'm still trying to figure that out.
Well, the answer was not here, and that was the wrong answer.
Yes. True.
Now we have an amazing venue for that.
And the BC slots, I'm interrupting here, your producer, to say, that's been going strong since Brian was here when we last talked.
Yes.
And it's going crazy, and I finally got a chance to try it.
How'd you do?
Took my 100 in about 5 minutes.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
But then we'll have the Raiders. They'll start preseason games here in just at the end of August, and then we'll start to get right back into football season. So you'll start to see the bars and the sports books start to be activated again. Getting ready for fall. I'm excited.
Now to the main event. We are going to talk about Oscars Dinner Series. And so since Lake Mead has started receding at a rapid rate here, at least 2 barrels have been found. They've had bodies inside of them. As we record this, yesterday we learned about another body that was found in Lake Mead. I mean, who knows if these are all from the same time or what, but I think we'll have answers on that soon. So the world's media obviously went straight to the source, Oscar Goodman, to find out, what was this? Were these mob hits? Like, who are these bodies? Why are they in Lake Mead, and why are they in barrels? So Oscar decided to make the topic of his dinner series all about the bodies in the barrels. So I promised you a Jonathan Jostle appearance. Here he is introducing Oscar.
Welcome to the Oscars Dinner Series. We have all of our regulars back here. Joe Asher flew in specially from Del Mar. Big deal there. We got Benny Cherry here at his first ever dinner series. Good to have you, Benny. And as always, we are in for a treat tonight. Oscar has prepared copious notes. So tonight we're going to be talking about the barrels. It's very interesting because he either knows nothing about the barrels, in which case I don't know what we're talking about, or he knows exactly who's in that barrel, and he's about to break the code of silence. I don't know what's happening, but we're talking about barrels. Over to you, Oscar.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much, Jonathan. That's the last time I'm thanking you for anything. You know, when we got through our last speech, I had a wonderful idea as to the next two speeches. One about the women I represented over the years. Great speech. And two about the Rotten Tomato judges that I appeared in front of over the years. A great speech. And then I came down here and I started to do my research. And Jonathan said, "Did you hear about the barrel?" I said, "What barrel?" He said, there was this barrel that was found in Lake Mead, and there was a body in it. And the body had a bullet hole in the back of its head. I think you should speak about that. Who wants to hear about a stupid barrel, I said. I said, "I don't know anything about barrels." I said, "All right, let me see what I could do with the barrel." The next thing I know, I get a phone call. Associated Press. "We want to talk to you about the barrel." I said, "I don't know anything about the barrels. We want to talk to you about the person in the barrel." I said, "What do you think? I ordered a murder or something?" I said, "Nobody asked me whether they could put a bullet in the guy's head who was in the barrel." "How did you know it was a guy?" I said, "I didn't know it was a guy." I didn't even know what kind of barrel it was. As far as I was concerned, my clients had no use for barrels. They said, "Oh, that's what you think." And then the next call I get is from the Daily Mail, and there's some Brits around here tonight, I know that. And the Daily Mail was having a major story about the barrel, and who do they call? Me. Why are they calling me? All I did, I was a mayor for 12 years. I had a nice law practice representing legitimate people. Oh, you know, now I'm getting a little hot, really. Legitimate people, they were reputed, but they were legitimate. And they wanted to know whether one of my clients did this. I said, "One of my clients? How am I supposed to know? You think my clients tell me what they do?" I said, "I don't want to hear from my clients." I represented them without even wanting to know what the charge was, to be honest with you. "Well, did Tony Spilaccio did it?" I said, "Here we go. Here we go. Every time something happened in town, if some mope was found in a ditch in the old days, Tony did it. If a spoon or a fork was missing from tonight's dinner, Tony took it." I said, "I don't want to even talk to you people about the barrels." Well, I couldn't duck them enough. We had them. We had Fox News Sunday live talking about the barrels. And did Spilaccio do it? They became very brave. I said, "You know, if Spilaccio did it, he did not ask my permission." I thought the next question was going to be, "Did you do it?" And I said, "I didn't do it. I didn't order it. And I'm not telling you that because I'm going to take the fifth." And I took the fifth. They were very, very upset because I wouldn't give them a straight answer on it. But I never saw so much interest in a barrel with a body in it. I mean, what's the big deal? All I know is that in Las Vegas, if you remember this first opening scene in the movie Casino, they had the Joe Pesci character doing a speak of a view of the expansive Nevada desert. And he said there are a lot of bodies in there, and each one has its own story. And I'm saying, what does this have to do with anything? Because this barrel was found in Lake Mead. It has nothing to do with our expansive desert. And I knew from representing reputed people that there was an unwritten law that if you're going to whack somebody, you didn't whack them in Las Vegas, because Bobby Kennedy, who was the Attorney General of the United States, JFK's brother, believed that Las Vegas was a very bad place, and the reputed people I represented wanted to make sure that any whacking took place outside of the Las Vegas. It had to be outside the state. And when you recall back to history and you think who was whacked, you think about Bugsy Siegel. He was whacked at the Virginia Hills home in Beverly Hills. Good job. And you think of Gus Greenbaum, one of the owners at the Riviera. He was whacked in Arizona. Great job, because they got his wife, too. It's a wonderful thing. So the whacking was taking place outside of Las Vegas, and I knew that anybody who I represented was cognizant of the fact that they weren't going to whack somebody in Las Vegas because there was an agreement. Las Vegas was an open city. They didn't want to ruin it. They didn't want to let the federal government in here. And so what they did in Nevada is we had a governor who was a civil libertarian, and I knew he would never agree that the Black Book was a constitutional vehicle to keep people out of casinos. That was Grant Sawyer, and yet he said to somebody who was very close to me, don't worry about it. He knows if they have a Black Book and bar people from going into it, that it will never stand up in court. And I said, well, I don't believe that because I've been fighting it all these years. And he said he never dreamed that it would be able to pass constitutional muster. So I said, well, he was wrong on that one. And they were always looking to put somebody in the Black Book who was going to be a model to the federal government that Las Vegas is trying to do something in order to quell organized crime from coming into the community here, because they had real qualms about Las Vegas being a legitimate place, things that Mr. Bourdain had to worry about when he was trying to get the Raiders here. That was the attitude on the part of not only the Raiders, it was a part of the NBA, the part of the Major League Baseball. Everybody was worried about the mob taking over Las Vegas, and that's what kept us from getting these great sports teams and venues here in Las Vegas. But we showed that we're able to regulate gambling better than any other place in the world, and without our regulatory agencies, there's no telling how much hanky-panky would be taking place in the community. But Bobby Kennedy didn't understand this. I think that Governor Sawyer understood it, and they passed this legislation which permits the Gaming Control Board and Gaming Commission to bar somebody from coming into a casino. And that just doesn't mean into the confines of the casino itself, as I've talked about before, but even if they wanted to go into the part where the, and I'm not picking on McDonald's because they have enough people picking on them, the restroom next to McDonald's. If they went into the restroom next to McDonald's, they were breaking and violating the Black Book law if they were in it. And the hotel, Mr. Jossel, would be subject to losing its license, believe it or not, if somebody urinated on your premises who was in the Black Book. So I hope you've learned that lesson. If you haven't, I saw, and I'm saying this for my wife, I saw about 5,000 homeless people who were looking for a place to urinate on the way down here, and instead of coming into the hotel, they were urinating on Main Street under the twinkling lights, which she's so proud of that she had put up here. And it's all her fault that we have a homeless problem here. I tell it the way it is. That's why I don't get dinner half the time. She's a very tough lady. But I have to tell the truth since I'm here tonight. So there was this fella in Chicago by the name of Tony Spilotro. And Tony Spilotro was a mid-level type guy who made a living in Chicago, and for some reason they said that he was a mob enforcer, that he would take care of things in Chicago, and anytime somebody got killed in Chicago, they said Tony did it. And they would charge him, and Tony would never be found guilty. He always beat the case, and he always went home at night and didn't worry about a thing. And one day, he decided to come out to Las Vegas, and he came out to Las Vegas, and he wasn't an enforcer here. He bought a interest in the Circus gift shop. He paid $70,000 for it, and he felt that this was a way to put the jacket behind him. He didn't have to worry about law enforcement following him. But once law enforcement gets their eyes on somebody and gets their teeth into somebody and their talents into somebody, they never let go, and they found him all the way from Chicago into Circus, and they were all over him, and they called Jay Sarno, who was the owner of the gift shop there, and Tony had paid $70,000, and Sarno says, they're telling me I have to get you out of here because they're going to take my license away. They're not going to allow you to be in here. No, Tony said, all I want to do is have the stinking gift shop. Jay said, how much do you want for it? And Tony had a certain look about him. When he looked at you, you did what he liked you to do. And he said, there's no other way of putting it. I mean, have you ever seen a look like that? Sam, has your son ever seen a look like that? You never looked at him like that way. Well, my son has. And that look is not a nice look. And Jay finally sold it to him for $700,000, which is not a bad investment. And everybody in the room here would like to have the same kind of investment. And that forced Tony. It's almost like my wife with the homeless. You take them out of the city, and you take them out of the Fremont Street Experience area, and they come down Main Street over to Sahara, and then thankfully into the stinking county, and then further out towards the stinking Henderson, and all these other rotten places around here, but not in the downtown area where the Fremont Street Experience is thriving, where it's safe and it's wonderful and everybody's having a good time. And that's what happened as far as the Tony was concerned. They laid off him for a while, and our law enforcement here at that time, and I know nobody would like to believe this, they were crooked. They were, and I know we have a very important guy who's undercover today with us, and he won't admit it probably, but Metro was, they were crooked. The good thing was some of the crooked people that work for Tony, work for Metro, came over and worked for Tony. They were very good employees of Tony's and provided him with very important information that could not necessarily be gleaned from any other source. And the FBI here were worse than any mobster I've ever seen. There were 12 of them who were kicked out of town because they would lean on the hotels for food and beverages and freebies and free rooms and the like. And they were moved out, but you won't find anything which will reflect that in their files because it was the biggest cover-up that ever took place. But that didn't stop the sheriff. And don't be scared, everybody. It's a different day. They're just as crooked today, but they're not as dumb. The sheriff, and it's okay. I know you're recording me. And we haven't. There's a new sheriff in town. I think somebody said that. And the new sheriff, he's from all likelihood, he's going to be an honest sheriff. And I'm not saying that Ralph Lamb was not honest, but well, people are snickering. But Ralph Lamb, who was an enemy of mine while I was representing my reputed clients, he said that he was going to bury them, and I said, no, you got it backwards. My clients are going to bury your employees, and there was actually a war taking place, and Ralph Lamb's right-hand man, Gene Clark, and this is all documented, borrowed. This is funny. It's interesting how the word borrow is used. He borrowed $118,000 from somebody at the Stardust who was with the Origin Corporation and never paid it back. So if that's borrowing, I'd like to, anybody want to loan me some money? I mean, I promise you the same terms. You lend me the money, I will never pay you back, and I will refer to it as borrowing. You'll be able to write it off as something. I don't know. That's something, but that's the way it was in those days, and each side was fighting each other, and nobody was able to do anything about the presence of the mob's representative from Chicago and the Chicago Mafia to Las Vegas in order to take over the streets and to protect certain people in Las Vegas so that the, quote, mafia would be able to have their interests protected here. And they focused in not on the casinos, interestingly. In the beginning, it was focusing in on Tony Spilotro because he came out with the baggage. He came out with the record. And you know what the record was? I want to tell you folks this. Here's a guy, and I counted them up. Forget about the FBI telling us that he killed 27 people. I mean, I have 35 people that he's supposed to kill. So they were light. And of these 35 people, how many people did he was he convicted of killing? None. Do you know what his record was when they put him in the black book, which precluded him from making a wee-wee at the McDonald's? Do you know he was found guilty in the United States federal court in the District of Illinois of making a false application for a home loan mortgage. And believe it or not just one count, 2 counts. And and check me out. You know what the judge did? He fined him $1 on each count. And I've looked at the records, and I still can't figure out whether the fine ran concurrently or consecutively. So he was either put up in the black book for $2 or $1, and no convictions, even though he had been arrested 15 times in Chicago for killing people who were really killed. I mean, if he killed them, he did a good job, because these people were maimed, they were tortured. I don't want to, you're about to have dinner, but I mean, the poor decedents, even I have to say the poor decedents were really violated by whoever put the ultimate blow on them. I mean, guys like Action Jackson. I mean, if you ever can go up on some like internet and look up Action Jackson, make sure that you've eaten and that you've already relieved yourself and you didn't have any opportunity to throw up because of what happened to poor Action Jackson. There was a guy by the name of Seifert, horrible. They killed him. Whoever killed him, I don't know who killed him. I wasn't even back in Chicago at the time. I wasn't able to give orders at the time. I wasn't able to say what they should do at the time. But a guy by the name of Seifert, another guy by, there were all sorts of these people. And 15 of them, 17 of them, whatever, and Tony came out here. So they started to harass poor Tony. And they harassed him and harassed him and harassed him. And whoever was killed, whether missing or not, they didn't have to be missing, or they didn't have to be in a barrel for them to say Tony did it. Anybody, any bookmaker, Tony did it. Any gambler, Tony did it. Just to give you an example, and I'm not sure whether this coincided with the rule that you're not supposed to kill people in Las Vegas so that the federal government won't get on top of you. But there was a fellow by the name of Tony Albanese, and now you tell me. I don't know the answer. My son, who's a judge here, he may know the answer. I don't know the answer. They found Tony's head in California and his body in Las Vegas. Was he killed in Las Vegas or California? I don't know. But Tony was killed. And then Rick Manzi, who was Barbara McNair's husband. Anybody remember Barbara McNair, or are we too old to remember her? Well, she was with in movies with Sidney Poitier. She very famous actress. Manzi was killed here. I wrote down a couple of these people who were killed in Las Vegas. Red Klim, who was a bookmaker. Marty Bucheri, who supposedly owed money to people associated with Tamara Rand and the Stardust people. He was killed here. Then, in order to make the job complete, whoever killed Marty probably killed Tamara Rand. They wanted to make it a clean sweep, and Tamara Rand got killed. She got killed down in San Diego, and the killings were pretty similar. It was always a .22 in the back of somebody's head, and not all the time. There were different ways to kill people, but that seemed to be the mob's way, if they were mob killings. And then they had even Al Bramlett. Nobody even knows who Al Bramlett is anymore. Al Bramlett was the head of the culinary union. Now, I'll show you how sick some people are. Al Bramlett was murdered, and I think I know who killed him. And the people who said that they killed him didn't kill him. They just wanted the notoriety of having said that they killed him. And that was Tom Hanley and Granby Hanley. And they both said they killed him. And then Granby said, well, I really didn't kill him. My father killed him. But neither of them killed him. But it doesn't matter. Bramlett is dead. But for a long time, Tony was suspected. I can't say he's suspected. They just said, Tony did it. It's an easy way of doing this. And then a guy by the name of Frank Pompacero. Anybody with San Diego ties? They may remember Frank being killed coming out of a phone booth. He was supposed to be the head of the Mickey Mouse Mafia out of Los Angeles. He came out and he got a bullet in the back of his head. They said Tony did it. And so forth and so on, right down the list. And then there was even I have to say that this was not nice. There was a fella by the name of Billy McCarthy, and he had a partner, Mike Maraglia. And apparently these two fellas back in the 60s were burglarizing homes in an area of Chicago where a lot of these alleged mobsters lived. And that's not nice. I mean, if you're going to do it someplace you're not going to bother alleged mobsters. And they wanted to teach these people a lesson. and they found them, and one of them wouldn't tell where the other one was, and along came a guy by the name of Frank Collada. Collada was going to be the sole witness who was going to be able to testify as to who killed the fellow who ended up killed first, to make him talk about where to find the other one. And they finally got to a point where they said it was Tony, and Tony put this guy's head in a vice. You may remember that scene in the casino, and the guy's eye was popped out. It's all right. You could eat. You should pray before you eat, but you could eat. And the eye was popped out of the head, and then after they popped the eye out, and the guy said where his friend was, then they went to kill him, and they killed the other guy. And Collada was the sole witness against Tony in that case. Tony said, we got to go back there. I said, Tony, I really don't know that much about Chicago state court law. I've tried a lot of cases in federal court back there. He says, you'll be able to do it. I'm going to hire a good local lawyer. And they hired a fellow by the name of Herb Barcy. And Herb was with a law firm that had the reputation of taking care of reputed people. And he was my co-counsel, and we went to trial in front of a judge by the name of Tom Maloney. And if people don't think I earned every cent of the monies that I was making as a criminal defense lawyer representing alleged mobsters, they can believe this particular story, because we went to trial in state court, and the sole witness against Tony was Frank Collada. Frank Collada was the scum of the earth. He was a pig of pigs. He was a liar of liars. He was a slob. He was a jerk. And he became the darling of the FBI because he was going to flip. And they flipped him by making up a lie that they had a tape where Tony said he was going to have Collada whacked when there was no such tape. And Collada was so ashamed to admit that he was scared of Tony that he went to his mother and said they played him a tape. And they took Collada in front of Paul Goldman, who was a state court judge here. And instead of telling the state court judge that Collada had participated in at least 10 murders, which Collada told them about, they didn't mention one murder. He said he committed some robberies. They didn't mention about 115 robberies to him. They didn't mention the burglaries to him that he did. And he got 4 years. Yeah, holy right. He got 4 years and then got out and became their darling. And I love any former FBI agents here? Well, you should be. If you are, you should be ashamed of yourselves the way you act. You really should. You get a hold of these rats who will say whatever you want them to say. And they used Collada and took him all over town and put him in the witness protection program and bought him lunches and dinner and all sorts of treats and shows and had him stay in nice hotels. And he's the one who was the sole witness against Tony back in Chicago, talking about the murder of the guy whose eye was popped out and his buddy. And we went to trial, and I was in charge of the cross-examination of Collada. And I had an inherent dislike for him. I don't know whether you could tell that or not tonight. I made only one mistake in all the years I practiced law. Collada was represented in Las Vegas by a very good guy, John Mamet. And John Mamet's office was right on top of my office at 520 South 4th Street. And Johnny was a great guy, and he was going to court with Mamet. And Mamet brought Collada down to my office, and he said, I want you to meet this guy, Collada. And Tony always said to me, stay away from this guy. He's a wimp. He's no good. Don't talk to him. I want nothing to do with him. And John said, be nice to him. Meet Mr. Goodman. And Collada mumbled something. Couldn't understand a word he said. He talked that street talk Chicago crap. And he was introduced to me. And he said, how do I look? I said, how do you look? You look like a bum. You're supposed to go to court, and you don't even have your tie done right. He said, I don't know how to tie one. I said, I'll teach you how to tie one. And I took the tie, and I put it around his neck, and the only mistake I've made in 35 years of practicing law at that time was I didn't tie it enough. I should have strangled Collada because that's what he deserved. So Collada is the only witness, and we go to trial, and Collada is the only one who talks about any substance as far as Tony's concerned. And I was I was amazed because he is such a dummy, but they work with him so much it almost sounded real. And we get through, and then the state rests its case. And they said, Mr. Goodman, do you have any witnesses you'd like to put on? And I said, I'd like to have a recess until tomorrow. He said, well, no, why don't you move for a judgment of acquittal? Now, I didn't know what a judgment of acquittal was in a state court. In federal court, I knew what it was. After the prosecution rests its case, you can move for judgment of acquittal that they didn't meet their burden of proof, and they didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And I said, yes, and I made I thought, a very cogent argument, and the judge said, denied. Uh-oh. I said, what happens now? He says, well, tomorrow you either put on witnesses or you make a closing argument. Well, my judgment of acquittal motion was basically my closing argument. And I said to myself, my client's in a lot of trouble. And if my client's in a lot of trouble, there's no telling what kind of barrels are. Did I say that? I gave myself up. If he's in trouble, I'm going to be in trouble because even though I represented him on so many cases, he was never found guilty, never spent a day in jail except waiting for me to get back from another case so I could represent him on bail. So that night, I went back to the hotel, and if I had been at Lake Mead with a sweat that came out of my body, my bed was so wet, and it was not from the pee-pee at McDonald's. It was so wet. It was unbelievable. It was just incredible. Didn't sleep an inch. I'm tossing and turning. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I said, there's got to be a difference between a motion for judgment of acquittal and what I'm doing tomorrow morning. And I said, tomorrow morning, I guess I'm arguing reasonable doubt. So I got up, and the judge said, do you have any witnesses? I said, no, Your Honor, I'd like to make my argument. And the judge, no jury, the judge was the finder of fact and of law, did it all himself. And I argued to the judge, and I argued to him and argued to him, and he finally said, let me deliberate this. And he went off the bench into the back into his chambers, and then came out and he said, not guilty. Well, Spilaccio was so happy. I mean, there's only one guy in the courtroom who was happier, and that was Oscar. Oscar was the happiest guy in the world because I thought that might be my only loss, and if I lost that one, nobody would be able to say that Tony was the guy who put the barrel in Lake Mead. So that's how we started this, because of rotten Jonathan Jostle talk about the barrel in Lake Mead.
Thank you, Oscar. Please come again. And thank you all to the great Oscar's team. Couldn't do it without you guys. Courtney, Ryan, please all make sure you have the information so you get to book early for this event so we don't disappoint anybody. And for those that haven't been before, listen to the podcast On the Corner of Main Street, because all of his stories are on the podcast, so you can catch up on Frankie and all the other stories you might want to hear. But thank you, everyone, and thank you to the Oscars team, and we'll see you in Sand Dollar afterwards.
We'll be back again soon, but in the meantime, please rate, review, and subscribe. Tell your friends about On the Corner of Main Street, and of course, follow us on social. On Twitter and Instagram, it's @PlazaPod, and on Facebook, find us at Plaza Podcast. Or go right to the top and tweet Jonathan @JonathanJostle. We'll see you next time from right here on the corner of Main Street.